Well, ever since its original debut, the Milwaukee Fastback has been an instant success because it not only brought the carryability of a pocket knife, but the deployment of a pocket knife into the utility knife arena with that push button lock. Now, all of a sudden, we had ease of deployment, ease of carry versus those big, bulky metal utility knives with the push button slide that we had to do. That was never a joy to use. Now, it was like carrying a pocket knife, but we had the access to the replaceable blades. And it's really been the standard ever since for utility knives. Well, I was walking through the hardware store the other day and I came across these two push button lock utility knives, one from Klien and one from Kobalt. And I said to myself, well, maybe these have some features that are better than the original Fastback. And is Milwaukee just coasting on their original success, and have other companies started to produce things that might function and work a little bit better? So we're not only going to unpack what these two other utility knives can do, this is really going to be the ultimate guide for utility knives here in 2024. So thanks for joining me, guys. If you're new to the channel, I'm Aaron, this is Gideonstactical. Let's dive in. So let's begin with the Klien Tools Flickblade. And as an electrical apprentice, I did that for 3 years. Kliens were like my go-to tool. So when I saw that they had finally come out with like a utility knife version, I was like, oh man, I gotta pick this up and just kind of see. All right, wow, there's already a few things I'm really liking with this Klien tool. The first and foremost is the handle. The handle is designed so that I can get a full grip and not have a need to choke up on the blade. The original Fastback is not like that. When I grip the handle like this, my pinky is definitely not fully supported and has this choil that really is where I usually will grip the tool. Now, on one hand, it means that I'm able to get really nice and up close on the tool to better control the cuts, but I do have to kind of like choke up like some Spyderco pocket knives that we know. This, boom, I just grip it, I'm ready to rock and roll. I can still choke up if I need to, and it does have that like cord cutting notch right there, and then you have access to the blade. Don't mind that B. And then we do have that push button lock that will easily just release the blade and slide it in. So that's all very similar to the Fastback. Got a little hit of mild jimping, give you a little texture there to grip onto. The other thing is that I'm seeing those bronze washers in there, just like on the Fastback, so that's good. But the stop pin is that silver bar right there, is slightly thicker in diameter than on the Fastback right there. And the plunge lock, and I might be having to run in some photos here, the plunge lock on the Milwaukee doesn't protrude quite as far as on the Klien. The Kliens actually go out a little bit further. Other than that, it feels very similar. The action on the Klien seems very similar to the Fastback because of those bronze washers, which is excellent. I do like the loop over deep red pocket clip of the Fastback more than this kind of metal 2-screw. I mean, it's fine and it's got decent flex, but this is going to go over like those heavy duty pockets and reinforced pockets better than the original Klien. Let's get some work in here real quick, just see how the ergonomics feel on this. But there is already one thing I'm noticing with this that I'm not a huge fan of, but it does have a secret feature that the other two models do not, that we'll address here in just a moment. But I do want to invite you guys to hit the like button, to subscribe if you haven't yet, and hit the bell icon so you can be notified every week when I put up new videos communicating to you pros and cons of whatever design we're looking at, so you can make wise choices on whether or not it's the right tool to put in rotation. And speaking of communication, it can be difficult to connect with your coworkers on a job site to request certain supplies or have them engage in a certain task at a certain point in time. But thankfully, the sponsor of today's video, which is Rocky Talkie, has a solution with their two-way radios. Now, I've had the original 2-watt mountain radio for a few years now, and time and again, it proves itself not only in durability, which is really important around a job site, but also in its capability, having up to 5 miles in more confined environments of range, and then with line of sight up to 35 miles, and really have having a lot of versatility in that, but also having the lithium ion battery that is rechargeable. So you're not eating through batteries, particularly on a job site. You know, you can just plug it in at the end of the day and you know you're ready to rock and roll. And if you forget, it's gonna give you several days of battery life before you actually need to recharge it. But if you need something more capable, there are the 5-watt GMRS radios. And these will provide longer battery life, waterproof capability, as well as a stronger signal. And having used both radios extensively, they've become an essential piece of kit. And I just wish that I had them back when I was in the trades doing electrical work, and it would have made the communication across the job site so much easier and saved myself and my crew a lot of time. So I'll have a link in the description box below over to the Rocky Talkie website. When you click on that link, it'll automatically take off 10% from your purchase, helping you save a little extra scratch when you're wanting to score some radios to help better communicate on the job site or with loved ones when you're on all of your adventures. Now, what about that standout feature that the other two don't have and the issue that I'm noticing? Well, this will not only lock out at 180 degrees, but it will also lock out at 135 degrees. So this is locked now and is in good lock position and kind of gives you this unique slicing capability, particularly if you're doing like a lot of long wall cuts. I could see this being very comfortable and ergonomic. So that's a cool feature that the other models aren't going to give you. Leave a comment below if you guys see a lot of value in having this type of geometry on your utility knife, or do you think it's just kind of a gimmick and doesn't make a lot of sense? So the issue I'm seeing with the Flickblade is the side-to-side play. Look at this. There's a lot of rock. I tried to tighten the pivot right there, didn't really adjust it or help it in any way. I mean, you can hear it rattling back and forth. Now, the Fastback does have some side-to-side play a little bit, but just not quite as much as that Klien. You can hear it not make any sort of noise when I rattle side to side. Now, the up and down on the Fastback is excellent, and the up and down on the Klien is okay. There is a little bit. So there's definitely, the pivot seems to be a lot more loosey-goosey on the Klien than it does on the Milwaukee. Now onto the Kobalt, and it has no cool name. It just says Compact Speed Release Utility Knife. Boring. And I believe the Kobalt is Lowe's like company brand, and it was the cheapest of all of them. I think this one was like $8, whereas the Klien one I think was like $12, and the Milwaukee floats right around that same price point. I will say that no matter which model you go with, the freaking packaging is ridiculous. You need a utility knife just to get into the utility knife. Golly, man. So like the Milwaukee, we got a wire pocket clip. That is my preference. So out of all three, this is actually probably the best because it's a little bit larger and does have a little bit thicker, higher ride to it. Now they're all tip down, so that is something to note. I guess that's for safety reasons. You know, it doesn't really matter to me one way or the other. We have a really blocky handle that is polymer, just like the other ones. This one kind of feels like the most chunky. Is it? It's about as thick as the Klien, but it just feels, I don't know, it just feels like a little like chunkier, I guess. Push button obviously whips open. Now, what's interesting is that the action again feels very similar to the other two, but it doesn't have bronze washers from what I can tell. Those look like stainless steel in there. So I don't know, good or bad. That's probably a pricing thing. The bar is also nice and thick right there, and again, a little bit bigger than the Milwaukee. And when we go to open the blade, we do have a little bit of side-to-side play. Not quite as bad as the Klien. It's kind of like in between. The Klien being the worst, the Milwaukee being the best. This is kind of in the middle, and same with the up and down. Now, what I do really like is it has like a nice thumb shelf with some very light jimping right there. That is probably the best for your thumb to rest on of all three ergonomically. And then it will give you that notch slit as well, and then access with that push button right there to release the blade and rotate. So you don't really have an area to choke up, but you can if you kind of need to, like right there, and you won't accidentally engage the blade. So I could get up on there. Now, when I grip the handle back here, it is just ever so slightly longer and like fuller than the Fastback. And again, in between that and the Klien. So I don't feel like my finger is falling off like it does on the Milwaukee, kind of forcing me up into that choil. But I would say the Klien definitely has the biggest handle. So something to note there, and feels the best ergonomically of all three if you don't want to choke up, this being a little bit in the middle there. So it's an interesting mix. Let's conclude my thoughts on all three, and is the Fastback still king or not? Well, if you just want a one and done, not think about it option, yes, the Milwaukee Fastback, after having used these and just seeing what they offer, is still kind of the best choice to me. It's just simple, you know it's gonna work, and you know what you're getting. But between all three, if you were to ask me, I actually prefer the handle ergonomics of the Klien. I just like having the ability just to grip it, not feel like I have to choke up. The extra little notch there is nice. And then having that extra feature of going on to the 135 degree, I think just adds a level of versatility to it. It's really just that play on the main opening that you just have to overlook. And for some people, it's gonna drive you nuts because you can feel it. You know, right now, I can just feel it like in the handle. And I know that will be a non-starter for many, but if this just had a tighter pivot, I would say this is the best of all three. And maybe I had a bad one. If you own one of those and yours is tight, leave a comment. I'm sure you guys will be, checking the comment section, and I always appreciate your guys' feedback. And I want to know which one of the three of these full-size ones, heavy duty ones, you guys prefer, particularly if you own them. And then the Kobalt, I feel like, is kind of the runner-up option. If you're at a store that doesn't have the Milwaukee and you see the Kobalt, it's absolutely going to get the job done. And if you like the idea of having the extra notch right there and not really having to worry about choking up on the choil and having the wire pocket clip, it's the cheapest, and so it will save you the most. So if you're buying particularly like several of them, maybe for the job site or something like that, you're gonna get almost the identical functionality as you will out of the Milwaukee. But the Kobalt to me is a tool of convenience and not the one that I'm gonna go out of my way to find. So appreciate you guys. Look forward to hearing your thoughts on all three and which one would you take if you could only have one, or you could buy all of them for like, I don't know, under 40 bucks. So, and try them all out for yourself. Appreciate you guys so much. Check out the other video popping up. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Look forward to hearing your guys' take. And until next time, always remember, stay equipped, stay prepared, and I'll see you out there.